Hey everybody. So yesterday afternoon we got some big news, really important news, especially for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Auston Matthews, who was an RFA at the end of this season, has signed his extension with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Matthews signed a 5-year deal worth $11.634 million per season with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So this obviously was expected. This is nothing that no one saw coming. We knew that Matthews and Toronto were working on a new contract. Obviously, they did not want to wait until the end of the season to get this done. Matthews is the future of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He is their franchise for the next, hopefully, 10 to 15 years for this team. So they were going to, do whatever they could to get him signed as soon as possible. And they did that. He's making over $11.5 million per year starting next season. It's a 5-year deal. I think we're going to see a lot more of those 5 or 6 year deals as opposed to 7 or 8, just because an 8-year deal is really long. The cap hit would be really, really high for it to lock a player like Matthews up for that long. And it would, while the cap continually goes up year after year, for the contract to still make sense for the player 7-8 years down the road, it would have to be an exorbitant amount of money now and take a huge portion of the cap up in the the near term as opposed to the long term. So I think we're going to see a lot more of these 4, 5, 6 year type deals as opposed to the 7 and 8 year ones. With more and more players, because it's just, we don't know how the league is going to change, how the cap is going to change over the next 8 years. That is a long time. So Matthews, next 5 years with the Maple Leafs for sure. He's 21 years old, so this locks him up through him being 26. Huge money, obviously, but he's one of the best young players in the NHL. He is an elite superstar in the game, so obviously he was going to command a ton of money. Now, a lot of people, with Matthews getting this much money, with Tavares getting $11 million per year, with Nylander getting almost $7 million per year, a lot of people have been talking about Toronto's cap situation and how are they going to be able to afford all of these guys. Well, I went on Cap Friendly and looked through the Toronto, and I really don't think that Toronto's in as bad of shape cap-wise as it seems to be. Nylander's contract was structured in a way that he counts as like 10 point something towards the cap this year, and that drops down to 6.9 next year and for the rest of that contract. So that's around $3 million coming off the cap for next season. You have Jake Gardiner, who's a UFA at the end of this year. He's going to get traded, I think, or he'll at least be gone in free agency, but I think they're going to trade Gardiner. So he'll be off the books for next year. Ron Hainsey will be off the books for next year. So that's about $7 million between those two. So that's already $10 million off the books for next season. They still have $4 million in caps, 4 point something million dollars in cap space for this season. They're really not that close to being up to the cap. They're right in the middle of the league as far as cap space is concerned. So it's not that big of a deal. Morgan Riley's locked up for at least a few more years at $5 million per year. Freddie Anderson's locked up for, I think, 3 more years at $5 million per year. So they're not going to have to pay a goaltender or their number one defenseman anymore, at least in the near future. Patrick Marleau comes off the books after next season, and that's $6.25 million. So the long-term cap situation in Toronto is not really that bad. The issue is that Mitch Marner is still an RFA. Lindholm is an impending UFA. Andreas Janssen is an RFA, and I'm missing one. Kapanen is an RFA. So they still have guys that they need to sign if they want to keep this team together. Marner being the big one, he's going to command $9 to $10 million per year. A little bit less than Matthews, but more than Nylander. Once you get him, if you get him signed at, say 9.5, just rounding here, throwing an arbitrary number out there. If you get him signed at say 9.5, that puts them much closer to the cap. I don't think they're going to be able to keep Lindholm, Kapanen, Marner, and Andreas Janssen. I would say at least one of those guys is not going to be able to stay a Maple Leaf. Marner is obviously the big guy that they want to get signed. It seems like he's not going to sign during the season. That's going to be an after the season thing. But that's okay because they've got Matthews signed and out of the way. That contract is done. So that means once the season ends, they can go right into completely focusing on signing Mitch Marner. Marner, I would say it's like they're going to keep Mitch Marner. So that means probably Janssen or Kapanen will end up having to go via trade, and Lindholm, maybe they just don't re-sign him. He's 27. He's a decent player, but he's not at the level of like the Nylander, Matthews, Marner type guys. I mean, Nylander's not at the Matthews and Marner level either, but he got his contract. So Lindholm might be the one to go. Then maybe one more will go. Either Janssen or Kapanen, and then they'll keep the other. But we'll have to wait and see. But overall, I don't think Toronto is as in a terrible cap situation as a lot of people make it out to be with these large contracts that they're handing out. However, what is an issue is that they're not really going to be able to add much outside of these guys in the future, because you have Tavares, Matthews, will have Marner, Nylander locked up on these big contracts. You're not going to be able to add much around Morgan Rielly on the back end. Sure, you can add depth defensemen, but you're not going to be able to get another top pair defenseman and still fit under the cap, most likely. So we'll have to wait and see. Jake Muzzin does have it next year on his deal as well at a measly $4 million. Jake Muzzin is worth a lot more than $4 million per season. He is on a gift of a contract right now. All right, a gift for the team. His contract is right now. So that helps them out a lot because they can keep Muzzin and Rielly together for next season, and that's at least one more year with them together. But we'll have to wait and see how the defense shakes out. But they are getting their big forwards all signed, and Matthews is obviously probably the biggest of all of them. So Auston Matthews staying in Toronto for the next 5 seasons. Obviously, this contract kicks in after this season, starting next year. Big money, $11.634 million per year. But he's Auston Matthews. He's obviously worth it. He is the future of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he is their franchise elite player for the foreseeable future. So that's what I've got on the Matthews signing. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. Check out offthewallhockey.com. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.